There are 5 things that I hate. Okay, maybe hate is a strong word. 5 things that I dislike about my 2026 Tesla Model Y Juniper. I'm Frugal Tesla Guy. I'm going to tell you what those things are, why I don't like those things, and what I may or may not do about it. I think we all know I'm a big fan of Tesla. I mean, I've got 3 Teslas so far. My original 2018 Model 3 long-range rear-wheel drive, my wife's Tesla Model 3 2025, and my most recent purchase, the 2026 Tesla Model Y. But as we all know, no matter how much we love or like something, it's not always perfect. And that, of course, is the case here with Tesla. So there are a few things that I'm not so happy with when it comes to the Tesla Model Y. They're obviously not deal breakers. And quite honestly, the first 2 I think a lot of people will associate with, but the last 3, they're more specific to my overall experience with Tesla in general up until this point. So let's get right to it and start with number 1. All right, let's talk stocks. And you think about, let's just kind of go in the history here. You think about when Tesla Model S came out and then eventually the X, the 3, then the Y, you had stocks on either side of the wheel. The right side was to switch gears, reverse, drive, the works, right? And many other features as well. The left side, turn signal, and a couple of other features as well. Now, we all know that one of the things that Tesla really prides itself on is the minimalistic design. And they thought, it's not minimalistic enough. So let's go ahead and take off the stocks off the steering wheel. Okay, well, then people started complaining about that because it was one of those things where you're in the middle of a turn and you're trying to figure out where the turn signal is on the steering wheel, and it was just confusing. So they said, okay, with the Tesla Model Y refresh, let's go ahead and put the turn signal back on with the stock. Okay, great. But now we have a consistency issue, because for people who own more than one generation Tesla, you have to really be mindful of which car you're driving, right? Because if you're in the 2018, like my original 2018 Model 3, I've got stocks on both sides that's changed the gears, turn signals, and other features with both those stocks. But if I get my wife's Model 3, which is the 2025, I don't have stocks on either side, and everything needs to be done on the screen or on the wheel. But if I get in my Juniper, my Model Y here, okay, then I've got my turn signal here. So I guess my main complaint is keep it consistent. Let's keep it consistent. Go all in or all out. Listen, I love having, if it was my choice, it'd be all in, and let's go stocks on both sides again. But again, if you're going to do this, do it all in or all out. That's as far as I'm concerned. Now, another thing I like to mention is it just kind of feels like an afterthought, at least with the Model Y. And the reason I say that is because, again, all it does is left and right. It doesn't do anything else. And even though the material is actually not cheap, it feels cheap when I'm using it. So it's like it's there, it's doing its job, and it doesn't feel like it's going to break, but it just feels cheap. So Tesla, make up your mind. All in or all out when it comes to the stocks. Oh, one more thing that I forgot to mention here, and of course I thought about this after recording a couple of other segments, but there are aftermarket products that you can buy, and one of them is you can put a gear stock here, actually. And I don't know exactly how it works. I haven't done a whole lot of research on it, but I've seen it to where you can put it on the Tesla Model Y refresh, and I'm sure it somehow connects to the computer of your car, obviously. I'm not exactly sure how, and it will work like a regular gear stock. Now, I don't know if it also includes being able to put it in full self-driving or the works, but that's something to consider, right? I don't know if I'm going to do it right away, but I do think it's something I'm going to research and see if it's something I want to do. And there are other products where you can actually put it right here in the center console, and I know, I forget the name of the company, but they make the sexy buttons that there's a dial that you can have in here, and it will also change the gears for you pretty easily as well. So these are a few things that I may consider, and quite honestly, there's a very good chance I may end up doing one of those different options, but it's still probably going to be a while. But you may see a video down the road of me either putting the gear stock on here or that really cool feature that you can have here in the center console. So be on the lookout for that. But in the meantime, it is as it is. Okay, let's get down here. Well, it's pretty low. Hey, how you doing? Oh yeah, I'm over here. Hey, listen, so what I want to talk about next is ground clearance. What are the chances of me scraping the bottom of the car if I'm out boondocking, which I don't do a lot of. But we're going to talk about my thoughts on the ground clearance of the 2026 Tesla Model Y refresh. Okay, here we go. This is definitely a lot more comfortable than getting on my hands and knees here and talking to you underneath the car here. But I want to talk about the ground clearance. Now, before I bought the Tesla Model Y, I did seriously consider buying something outside of Tesla. And one of those considerations was the fact that the Tesla Model Y has one of the lowest ground clearances of pretty much all of the other cars that are in the crossover and small SUV category. So for example, Subarus are upwards of 8 inches or more. I know the R2, the Rivian R2 is going to be approaching 10 inches off the ground. The Model Y, 6.6. So again, it's one of the lower ones. Now I get it, there's a reason for that, and that is efficiency. The lower it is to the ground, the better efficiency, less drag, you're going to get better range. So one of the things that they sacrifice with these other vehicles, the EVs, is less efficiency as a result. You think about the Model S, the Model X, and even the Rivian. They have the air suspension, right? So when they're on the highway, they lower it. When they're, off-roading or whatever, they put it up a little bit higher. Obviously, probably not off-roading in a Model S, but you get the idea. If you don't want to scrape the bottom of your car, you can lift that suspension. Now, there are other things that you can do with the Model Y to raise that, for example, and I know there are kits that will raise it up by about 2 inches. Is it going to affect the efficiency? Maybe, I don't know. But until I start scraping the bottom of my car a lot, I don't think I'm going to do anything to change it. Because the thing is, it's higher than my Model 3, and I do know that in some of our adventures, we did scrape the bottom of the Model 3 a couple of times. Nothing to create any damage, but something for you to go, man, I wish it was a little bit higher. So this is higher off the ground. I don't think we're gonna have any problem with scraping because again, we're not out boondocking, we're not off-roading, but there are times we're on some pretty sketchy roads and there is a potential to scrape it. So I'd have better peace of mind on those types of roads if the car was a little bit higher off the ground. But in the meantime, I'm going to leave it as is, and if I start scraping the bottom of the car more frequently than I'd like, then I may consider getting that lift kit. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the Frunk. Now, as you saw, I opened it. It was this big clunking noise. It opened up, and now I can open and close in this great room inside the Frunk. It's this great usable space here for trips, space that you don't typically have with other cars. So absolutely love it. Now, automatic and opening and closing Frunks, they're nothing new. In the aftermarket world here, I have had one on my original 2018 Tesla Model 3 for years. I mean, I was one of the first people when that thing came out to get my hands on one. But it was and has been an amazing feature that I've absolutely loved. And here's the thing. Any truck you buy, whether it's GM, Chevy, Ford, Rivian, even the Cybertruck, all of their Frunks close and open automatically. So why doesn't Tesla do that with all of their cars? At the very least, the S and the X. And I say this too. Why not make it a feature or an option, right? Like for example, one of the options is I put a tow hitch on this. It cost me extra, but I was more than happy to do it. Why not make it an option to have an automatic opening and closing Frunk? See, the thing is, even the Model 3 back in the early days didn't even have an automatic opening and closing trunk. Then eventually became standard. But even before that, I had an automatic opening and closing trunk installed in the car. And at a certain point, with certain cars in the Model 3, you can actually go to the Tesla factory or your service center and they will install an automatic opening and closing trunk for you. Not aftermarket, but actually their OEM product. I don't think you can do it though on my 2018. I'm not exactly sure, but that being said, it's something they eventually offered. So I would love to see them offer that as well. But in the meantime, I do know that eventually I will most likely install the automatic opening and closing front for my new Tesla Model Y. When that'll be, I don't know exactly when. You kind of got to spread out all of these different upgrades because it can add up over time. It's about a $500 purchase just for the hardware alone. If you have someone install it, it's going to cost more than that. But I know that I can install it on my own. I've done it before, and I should be able to do it with this one as well. So be on the lookout for that video. But automatic opening and closing frunk should be an automatic feature, but for some reason Tesla has said, nope, nope, just on the Cybertruck. So let's see it happen. But in the meantime, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do, they always say with two hands, and now it's closed, and now I've got fingerprints all over my hood. Oh, the joys of owning a Tesla. There you go. Let's get that front going, shall we, Tesla? All right, so the first thing that you see when you get in the car, I think anybody could argue this, is that this beautiful screen that we have here in front of us, right? For the passenger, for the driver. But one of the things that I always wondered about was with the design of the Model 3 and the Y, the design of the screen away from the dash, it only makes sense that Tesla would make this an option where you can tilt the screen left and right and up and down. It doesn't really make any sense to me. And in fact, there are aftermarket products out there that have been there for a while, and there's a man by the name of Matt from Tech Forum, and he actually developed a tilting screen. And over time, he really perfected it. And I have the latest version in my Model 3 that allows it to tilt left and right and up and down. And the beauty of what he did with it is, number one, he brought the screen out a little bit more, and even though it lowered it just a little bit, but not enough for you to really notice. Now here's the thing. I reached out to him and I haven't heard back, but I don't think he's designed a new one for the Model Y. And the reason I'd say that is because there, instead of just one cable that connects to the back of the screen from the older versions, there are now two cables that connect to the back of the screen. So there's that issue of cable management. See, the thing that Matt from Tech Forum did is he was able to design it to where there was absolutely no strain on that cable to the back connection of your screen, so you didn't have to worry about it failing. However, with the Chinese aftermarket products, the problem is there is no cable management with that. So they are just in there freely, and when you're moving this thing around, it is putting strain on those cables, and that will eventually, most likely, fail over time, and you'll have a screen that won't be functioning. So I am very hesitant at this point. In fact, I don't plan on doing anything until I know there's a reputable company that, number one, makes sure that it takes care of the cable management so there's no strain on the cables, and number two, that it doesn't lower it. The thing that I notice with these Chinese aftermarket products is it lowers it significantly to a point where it's like, okay, that just is not good. And what Matt did is he, again, really was able to prevent it from lowering that much to where it was all that noticeable. So I'm going to leave it as is. And here's kind of a funny story too. When my wife first got in her Tesla Model 3, the 2025, the first thing she did, she gets in and she grabs it with both hands and she's like trying to pull it closer to her. And I said, whoa, 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 be careful. You don't want to break this. Because she didn't know that it comes standard like this, where it's just in one fixed place. And really, and this may be psychological because I've got the thing tilted toward me in my 2018, as I'm so used to that, when you sit back and look at this, even from the passenger standpoint, it actually looks like it's tilted more in the direction of the passenger than it is the driver. See, let's go to the Model S and the Model X. Their first versions were the vertical screen, right? Remember that? But even then, even with the vertical screen, they had it tilted in the direction toward the driver, so it was easier for them to reach all of the functions. Then when they went to the refresh, right, they did the horizontal screen just like this, but they also included a screen that tilts left and right automatically. You can do a little automatic thing and it tilts towards you or towards the passenger. Why they don't do that with the Model Y and the Model 3, I don't know. But the design of this, as it's away from the dash, it only makes sense that it would actually tilt left and right and up and down. But for some reason, they don't do that. So until a reputable company like Matt from Tech Forum actually designs a new one for this, I'm going to leave this alone, because the screen, it's the heart of your car, right? And if it's not working, it is no fun. Trust me, I've been through it before. So I'm going to leave it as is. And until, like I say, a reputable company, maybe Matt from Tech Forum will design one. Matt, if you're watching, get to it, buddy. Right? I'm sure that's not that easy, by the way. But I'm going to leave it as is. That's just the bottom line. Because I don't like what I've seen in some of the installation videos with the cables all willy-nilly back there. Not a good situation. I'm not messing with that. So tilting screen Tesla, let's get on it. That's right, because this is my brand new Tesla Model Y, which does not have self-presenting door handles like that of my 2018 Tesla Model 3. And you're probably asking, what do you mean your Tesla Model 3 2018 has self-presenting door handles? It's an aftermarket product I put on years ago. It's worked beautifully. I've loved them, but that's an aftermarket product. You're not going to get that coming out of the factory for any Tesla Model 3 or Y. So one of the things that I like about having self-presenting door handles is many times you're coming up to the door, maybe not many times, but sometimes you come out to the door and your hands are full and maybe you've just got one free pinky. So if the door presented itself, if the handle presented itself like this, all you have to do is take your pinky and boom, you're good to go. See that? However, if you don't, you got to push this and then you can't really grab the handle because it pushes back in and you can't get it. Now, some people argue, and it may still be locked, but you can push all the way in, there you go, and then you can pull, but then maybe just kind of slowly and then you can maybe pull here, there you go. But the door is pretty heavy, and it's kind of hard to do that with your pinky unless, you got a really strong pinky, I don't know. But that's kind of what would be nice if you had the self-presenting door handles. You think of the S, you think of the X, yes, they've got the self-presenting door handles. They're the more expensive cars, so they're gonna have some of the more expensive features on there as well. But the aftermarket product, is it something I may do down the line? Maybe. Unlike that of the Frunk, I don't want to do it on my own, because what happens is you got to take out the entire door panel on the inside, take off the window, put the hardware in, put the new door handle in, and then put everything back together. It's quite a process. The hardware itself is about $500. Then by the time you do the install, it's another $300 to $500. So it's going to cost you $800 to $1,000 to most likely have all 4 door handles installed. I mean, it's a process. So Larry Lee, if I do this, it's going to be you doing it here. He's in the Bay Area, and I'll be sure to have him do it for me. But the door handles have really come a long way, because the other cool thing I like about them is that they have lights on the interior, which now a lot of them have, where you can change the color, whatever one you want, whether it's white or any color of the rainbow like that of the interior lights of the car. So it's a really neat feature there as well. So once again, I would love to see this be a feature for the Model 3 or the Model Y, but most likely it's gonna have to be that aftermarket product. But in the meantime, I think I'm gonna stick with them as is, and if I feel like it, if I feel like spending the money, I may have Larry Lee do it for me out in the Bay Area, but in the meantime, I guess I'll just have to leave them as is. So there are the 5 things that I dislike about my Tesla Model Y. And obviously they're not deal breakers, because here I am with my new car. Now the first 2 that I mentioned, which were the stocks and the ground clearance, that may impact some of you and may be a deciding factor for some of you. But that's something that I think impacts most people. The last 3 were aftermarket products that I really got used to in my 2018 Tesla Model 3. And that was the Frunk, the tilting screen, and the self-presenting door handles. Those are all aftermarket products that I've had for a long time and have really gotten used to having on my car. And now that they're not there, I'm really noticing it. The frunk in particular, the screen even more so, and the door handles. That would all be a nice feature. So this is what I was talking about, where the last three are going to be really centralized on my personal experience with Tesla. You may not experience this whatsoever because you've never really had any of those features, so you're not going to notice it. Like the screen, the frunk is something you're probably used to, and of course the door handles as well. But if you've ever had any three of those upgrades to your Tesla, then you know what I'm talking about. It is something that you get used to, and it really does add to the overall experience of owning the Tesla. So I do see, at the very least, the frunk. That will most likely happen. I am 99.9% sure that I will put a new opening and closing frunk on the car. I am pretty sure that I'll be putting a tilting screen in my car, but it's got to be a reputable company. The cable management's very important, and you got to make sure it doesn't lower that screen that much. The door handles, I think I can live without, but if eventually I'm thinking, you know what, I got a little extra money, let's do this, it'll be a lot of fun, and I'll have Larry Lee do it for me, then I'll go ahead and do that. But in the meantime, let me know what you think. Do you have a Tesla Model Y, a new one? What are some of the things that you hate about it or dislike? I think hate's is a really strong word. So what are some of the things that you dislike about your Model Y? I'd love to hear that and see that in the comment section below. And in the meantime, you know the drill. Like, subscribe, and stay positively charged.